For decades, the world has sought to unravel one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century, the third secret of Fatima. When Sister Lucia dos Santos received this message in 1917, it was sealed in the Vatican archives, shrouded in silence. The exact content of the secret has sparked debates, prayers, and a persistent sense of mystery. Over time, official explanations have been provided, documents have been published, yet many believers still feel that not everything has been revealed. Before continuing, leave a like on the video and your name in the comments and where you are watching from at this exact moment, so that together we can pray for your life. In May 2000, the Vatican disclosed Sister Lucia's vision. A figure dressed in white, identified as the Pope, walked among ruins, praying for the dead, until he was struck by a hail of bullets and arrows alongside other faithful. This vision was interpreted as a prophecy of the assassination attempt on St. John Paul II in 1981. For many, this resolved the mystery. However, others, even within the Church, felt that the vision was not the whole story. Something was missing. A key, an explanation, a message that was not merely visual but profoundly spiritual. Thus, for over 20 years, the debate lingered, with no clear answer, no confirmation or denial, until now. In a quiet homily, without cameras or prior announcement, Pope Leo XIV spoke words that touched the hearts of those present. It was not an official statement nor a doctrinal document. It was a meditation, a prayer spoken aloud, an act of transparency that astonished everyone. The homily took place in the Vatican's private chapel during a morning mass, attended by only a few: a theologian, a journalist, and 2 nuns devoted to continuous prayer. They listened in awe as the Pope, for the first time, addressed an unknown truth about the third secret of Fatima. It was not sensational news nor a mere announcement. His words, though brief, carried profound impact. Many have sought the meaning of Fatima's message in external things, wars, territories that have suffered persecution. But the true secret, the final battle, will not be for lands, but for souls, the Pope said. These words silenced everyone. What followed was even more striking. The Virgin wept, not for bombs, but because many will abandon their faith. The human heart will grow cold, and even within the Church, there will be those who forget God, even while pronouncing His name. The Pope did not point fingers or make accusations. He issued a warning, spoken with the serenity of someone who had prayed deeply before speaking, as if he had heard something in the silence, although he did not explicitly say, "This is what was missing from the secret." Everyone present understood it as such. It was not just new information, but a new dimension, an awakening, a truth many do not wish to hear. Leo XIV is not a fearful or impulsive pope. He is a man of reflection, slow to speak, but when he does, his words carry the weight of something divine. This time, what he said left many stunned. In the days following that Mass, the testimony of those present began to spread through the Vatican's corridors. At first, it was a rumor, then a growing echo, and finally a truth no one could ignore. The Pope had spoken, and his words changed everything. If the true message of Fatima is not just about attacks, wars, or assassinated popes, but about the loss of faith within and outside the Church, then what we are living now is not merely the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, but its concrete realization. This idea is so powerful that it has sparked an unexpected and deeply spiritual movement, an urgent call to re-examine faith, return to prayer, and guard the heart. As the Pope said in that same homily, the enemy is not bombs, but the coldness of the soul, the smile without faith, the prayer without love. That is what the Virgin wanted to warn us about. It was not a political secret, but a warning for the soul, which we are only now beginning to understand. When the Pope's words became known, something stirred within the Vatican's walls. It was not a great commotion nor a media scandal, but something deeper, a silent impact. For those familiar with the Fatima documents, the Pope's words were not entirely new, but completed what had always been implicit. Some theologians began carefully reviewing Sister Lucia's letters. A Portuguese priest with limited access to the original archives confirmed what many suspected. Sister Lucia wrote something beyond the visual part of the secret. It was not a prophecy of the world's end, but a warning about the loss of faith. One of her phrases, never officially published, reportedly said, "Satan has entered the minds of those who no longer believe, even though they still attend church, and the smoke of his presence will rise from within." This phrase aligns with what Leo XIV said in his homily. The final trial will be internal, and many will not see it because they are preoccupied with the external. Are we living that stage? Is this the moment when the unspoken secret is manifesting? The Pope has not confirmed it publicly, has not given a speech, nor published an official document. But that is not relevant, because his words have awakened something in the Church's conscience, as if a curtain is about to fall, and we will see clearly what has been before our eyes for years. Many Catholics already felt something was amiss. It seemed impossible that a message as profound as Fatima's could be reduced to a symbolic interpretation of an assassination attempt. The Virgin did not come merely to inform about an event, but to call for a deep, real, and urgent conversion. Now, with the Pope's words, that intuition has become certainty. A Latin American bishop said privately, "Perhaps it's not about an incomplete revelation. Perhaps the true secret is that we didn't want to heed what was already said." This is the true impact of Leo XIV's words. He did not bring a scandal, but unveiled a forgotten truth at the heart of Fatima's message. It was not just to inform us, but to awaken us. In recent years, the Church has faced significant tensions. Ideological scandals, loss of trust, declining vocations. Many have sought solutions, reforms, strategies, but the Pope, with his reflective leadership, places the soul at the center. That is what concerns most, because Fatima's message in light of his words is no longer just of the past. It is a living warning, a siren sounding for a people who may not want to wake up. Sister Lucia, in her final years, said, "Many no longer believe in hell. It's a pity that many no longer believe in God's real presence." The Pope now describes the same problem differently. The enemy will not take our temples but our love if we do not stay vigilant. That is more destructive than any war. In this context, the third secret ceases to be a closed prediction and becomes a mirror reflecting our soul, asking, "Is your faith alive? Or are you among those who still pray but no longer listen?" According to sources close to the Pope, this is just the beginning. Some say Leo XIV is writing a private letter to the world's faithful, not to reveal hidden information, but to rekindle dormant faith, a call to pray truly, to live the rosary, to participate in the sacraments with heart. Because if what is coming is a hidden battle, visible weapons will not suffice. The secret of Fatima is not a mystery to be solved, but a decision to be made. Heaven has spoken, the Pope has begun to echo it. Now it is our turn to listen. As Pope Leo XIV's words began to spread, first as a whisper in the Vatican's corridors, then as a flame glowing in attentive hearts, many started to see Fatima's messages differently, no longer as an old archive or a closed chapter in church history, but as something that perhaps never stopped speaking. When the Pope says the true secret lies within, he does not deny what was revealed in 2000, nor contradict his predecessors. He is completing a forgotten part. The vision revealed in 2000, the Pope walking among bodies, praying, being killed alongside religious and faithful, spoke of suffering, martyrdom, persecution, But what Leo XIV seems to indicate now is something subtler yet equally devastating: the lukewarmness of the soul, the lack of steadfastness, a prayer without fire, a church that stands but has lost its passion, its first love. For many, this is more terrifying than any physical attack. In a private meeting with members of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, the Pope reportedly said, "The Church's great trial will not come from external enemies, but from forgetting the essential, and that forgetting will begin among those who stopped listening to the Virgin." These words were not seen as a scandal, but as an echo to save hope. Leo XIV is trying to show, in his reflective way, without noise or protagonism, that the solution will not come from new structures, but from ardent hearts. This deeply connects with Fatima's original message, often forgotten. The Virgin did not come to predict, but to request prayer, penance, conversion. She did not speak of weapons, but of rosaries. She did not call for political reforms, but for spiritual reparation. Now, in the digital age, amid debates and worldly distractions, the Pope reminds us that Fatima's greatest secret is not what is hidden, but what is not lived. The message was clear: pray, convert, confess, consecrate. The problem was not the secret, but how we responded, he said. And that is what Leo XIV has begun to emphasize, not as an accuser, but as a shepherd, not to instill fear, but to inspire. The Vatican has not issued an official statement about this homily, nor has it denied or silenced the Pope's words. This in itself is a sign, a way of saying, listen, not out of duty, but because heaven is speaking again. In parishes in the Philippines, Poland, Mexico, and small communities in Africa, spontaneous Marian vigils have begun to emerge, with groups gathering to pray the rosary with greater intensity, as if something within them urges them not to wait any longer. Amid all this, Leo XIV remains steadfast, silent but deeply convicted, like a new John the Baptist, calling not to the external desert, but to the inner desert, where the soul discovers its truth, without noise, without masks, only before God. The third secret seen this way is no longer a closed file, but a siren sounding. It is not about finding a hidden fact, but about an urgent response. And the question echoing in churches, convents, faithful families, and hesitant hearts is the same. Am I ready, or am I among those who see Fatima as a story, not a warning? As Leo XIV said in that homily, the enemy does not come to destroy temples, but to lull souls to sleep. And when the soul sleeps, it no longer sees, no longer fights, no longer hopes. That is more dangerous than any bullet, because when hope is lost, the temple is already empty. What surprises many is not just the Pope's words, but how he said them. In a small chapel, without cameras, without prior notice, without protocol, as if he wanted to speak, not to the world's eyes, but to the hearts of those who still know how to listen. One of the nuns present described, the Holy Father did not speak as if reading a homily. It seemed he had wept before speaking, as if he were being used to express something he could no longer keep secret. That phrase sums up the moment's significance. What the Pope said is not sensationalism, but a spiritual interpretation guided by prayer, worth more than any document. Let us return to Fatima's message. In 1917, the Virgin appeared to 3 simple children in Cova da Iria, Portugal. She spoke of hell, conversion, the rosary, and Russia's role in the world's troubles. She also entrusted 3 secrets. The first 2 were revealed soon after. The third, however, was sealed, guarded, and kept silent for many decades. When it was finally published in 2000, many received it with surprise, both for what it said and for what it did not. A symbolic vision, a spiritual warning filled with apocalyptic imagery. Doubt persisted. Though the church said everything had been revealed, the Virgin's echo lingered. As Sister Lucia said, the message is not to be admired but to be lived. That is exactly where Leo XIV points. He did not come to contradict anyone, unearth papers, or create a media storm. He simply brought us back to the core of the message. And that core is fire, a fire that purifies, seeks holiness, demands change, not in others, but in each of us. It is clear that the Virgin did not come to warn of political threats. She told us that without prayer, without reparation, without consecration, the world would enter a spiritual winter. Before we continue, like the video and leave a message of faith for someone who is facing a difficult time right now. Today, over 100 years later, where are we? The Rosary is no longer prayed in millions of homes. The Eucharist is received by many without understanding. Confession has faded. Faith has become cultural, not a living encounter. Coldness no longer shocks. It has become commonplace. Leo XIV, with a trembling but steady voice, says, "The final battle will not be against an army, but against a tradition without heart." These words, gathered by several priests, are the key to rediscovering the message, because therein lies the true secret. It is not a visible enemy attacking us, it is the apathy hidden behind religiosity. The Pope subtly requested the restoration of communal rosary prayers, and that every family consecrate their home to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, not out of tradition, but out of spiritual necessity. He was clear: the church that does not turn to Mary will lose its way. An African cardinal repeated this phrase after a private meeting with the Pope. We are not talking about an act of devotion, but a weapon to face the darkness around us. For as the Virgin said in 1917, "My Immaculate Heart will be your refuge and the path that leads you to God." The question now is not what is missing from the secret, but what we are doing with what has already been said. The true secret was never hidden, it was merely ignored. Now, with Leo XIV leading the Church, heaven is offering a new chance to return to the beginning, to Fatima, to the Mother, to the Rosary, not as a memory, but as a means of salvation. As Pope Leo XIV's words spread gently among those who still listened to the Spirit, a question began to arise. What if the third secret of Fatima was never an external revelation, but an internal call? What if the secret was not a historical event, but a spiritual choice each generation must face? This is precisely what some theologians are starting to say, reflecting on the Pope's words. The true secret lies in the human heart and what that heart chooses before God. In that simple phrase lies the depth of the message. For years, many sought in Fatima a clear warning, a war, a punishment, a tragedy. But as Leo XIV pointed out with his calm and profound style, the greatest punishment has already begun, and it is invisible: abandonment. In a private conversation with religious dedicated to prayer, the Pope said something that shocked everyone. The Virgin did not come to predict, she came to weep, and we did not know what to do with her tears. His words were not theological but human, from someone who understands the pain of a mother who is not heard. Leo XIV has affirmed since his election that the great spiritual battle approaching will not be won with words, but with people who surrender to God. Thus, though he has not declared it officially, his actions, his silences, already show Fatima's message. He does not try to interpret it as a scholar, but lives it as a believer. And that, for many, is worth more than any analysis. The faithful who have begun responding to this call are realizing that Fatima's revelation did not come to frighten, but to prepare. The secret is not just a warning of a threat, but an opportunity. Before the end, a call for the Church to return to passion before its faith fades to ashes. Vigils, sincere confessions, personal consecrations to the Immaculate Heart are increasing, not as rituals, but as responses, prayers filled with desperation, but also hope. A priest who lived many years in Portugal recently said, "Fatima has not ended, it is just beginning." In this context, Leo XIV does not merely speak of Fatima, but guides the Church to finally understand what the Virgin said. It was not just a prediction, but a warning that can become positive if we respond. Sister Lucia, in her private letters, wrote a phrase few understood: "The time for mercy is now. Afterward, there will be no more opportunity." Is this what the Pope means? That mercy is available, but justice will come for those who do not accept it? No one can say for certain, but his gestures say everything. His silent, prayerful leadership unsettles some. He has been called distant, indecisive, slow, but in Fatima's light, his style has a purpose. It is that of someone listening to something greater than opinions. In a recent audience, he said, "I did not come to answer everyone, but to understand with everyone, because what is coming requires faith, not explanations." That may be the most important point. If the world awaits an official document with shocking revelations, it will be disappointed. But if what God wants is a people who pray, awaken, and return to their mother's heart, then Fatima's true fulfillment will be much quieter, but far stronger. It will not come with thunder, but with changes, not with shouts, but with tears, not from Rome, but from each person who chooses to live it. If that happens, the secret will not be revealed on paper, but in a church that finally understood. The spirit sparked by Pope Leo XIV's words has led many to ask, why now? Why did he choose to speak at this moment, when for over 20 years the third secret was considered revealed and closed? The answer, according to priests close to the Pope during his prayerful moments, is simple and profound. He listened to heaven, not in a mystical or extraordinary way, but through constant prayer, the inner listening that only true shepherds practice when all else falls silent. One of his closest advisors said, "The Pope has not received a new vision. He has deeply understood what others still do not see except with their eyes." That changes everything, because when a pope speaks from what he has seen in his most intimate prayer, he is not just offering an opinion. He is guiding the church on a clear path, not of strategies, but of the Spirit. What he illuminated with few words is that the church must now enter a time of inner examination, not of external disputes, but of true change, not of tactics, but of knees on the ground. As he himself said, "Peace will not come from agreements among men. Peace will come when man returns to the essential, God." This message has been powerful for the humblest, those who pray in secret, who help unseen, who still believe the rosary is not mere repetition, but a powerful spiritual weapon. They have understood and responded. What is beginning to emerge in many corners of the world does not make the news, but is intense, like a hidden fire, a quiet renewal of faith. Small groups returning to daily rosary prayers, Eucharistic adorations lasting through the night, personal consecrations to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and above all, a growing desire for sincere confession, to return to peace with God through an intense sacramental life. All this without rules, without orders, only from what was said and unsaid by a pope who seeks no applause, but to follow what heaven tells him. In this context, Leo XIV's words begin to align with what the Virgin announced in Fatima so clearly, yet was forgotten amid the noise. In the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. That triumph, however, is not automatic, not guaranteed as a destiny without conditions. It depends on the people's response. It depends on you, on me, on each person. Thus, now that the Pope has lit this light, the most important question is not whether something was missing from the secret, The question is, are we ready to live it? Because it is no longer about knowing more, but about transforming. Conversion does not begin with a decree or a conference. It begins with a soul that, in its intimacy, surrenders, kneels, and says, "Mother, lead me to Jesus." That is the key to the message. That is the urgency. If the Pope spoke now, it is not a matter of timing, but because time is running out, not apocalyptically, but in the sense that the time of indifference is ending. Heaven has waited, sent signs, repeated its message. Now, with this silent, faithful, and deeply spiritual Pope, the soul's final bell is ringing, not to frighten, but to awaken. Thus, without official statements, press conferences, sensational leaks, or media scandals, Pope Leo XIV has revealed the most important truth about the third secret of Fatima. He did not do so by opening a hidden file or speaking loudly. He did it as one who knows the sacred is not imposed. He said it deeply, left it in silence, and entrusted it to the conscience of each believer. The true revelation, we now understand, was not just a missing historical fact, but a spiritual call, still awaiting a response. The Pope did not come to change Fatima's history, but to complete what the world has yet to accept living: the profound transformation of the heart. In his words, his pauses, his silences, Leo XIV has made clear that the great battle the Virgin spoke of is not coming. It has already begun. It is not an external war, not weapons. It is the inner struggle each person faces when choosing between true faith and lukewarmness disguised as faith. Thus, what many still expected from the third secret, stunning discoveries. A clear final event was merely a distraction. The Virgin did not come to offer details of a calendar. She came to prepare us for what is unseen, for what truly shapes the eternal destiny of millions of souls. And now the Pope has said it clearly. The enemy does not need to destroy temples if he has already extinguished souls. These words, spoken almost in secret, have impacted more than any prediction because they force us to look inward, to see if our faith is alive or merely survives in empty routines. If we speak of God with our lips but have forgotten him in our hearts. Thus, if Fatima still speaks to us, if its message remains alive over a century later, it is because it has not been heard. It awaits a people who not only believe but transform. That is what Leo XIV has come to remind us, not as a prophet but as a shepherd. A shepherd who needs no applause, no flashy reforms, no popularity. He understood his task is not to lead a project, but to sustain a church through its darkest hour. And how does one pass through that night? By praying, confessing, fasting, repairing, loving, consecrating, as the Virgin asked, as the little shepherds lived, as this Pope has quietly said again, for only those who are attentive to hear. The Immaculate Heart of Mary will not fail. The triumph will come, but it will not be automatic. It will be built with tears, fidelity, hidden sacrifices, with a church that chooses to return to the mother's heart before it is too late. Thus, this message does not end here. It begins with you. It begins now. It begins when you finish reading this text, reflect and ask yourself, am I living what the Virgin asked? Or am I still waiting for a sign when she has already spoken? If this message touches your soul, if you believe there is still time, if you want to be part of the small, faithful remnant that will keep the faith when the world fades, write in the comments, Mary, care for my soul. It is not just a phrase for social media. It is an act of faith, a prayer, a response, because the secret has been spoken and now you write the story.